The Lakers' next move has been revealed as a brand new report has dropped revealing some wild information surrounding Rob Pelinka's plans. The Lakers' next move has finally come to light. We're going to break down exactly what that move is and discuss what this means going forward. As well, let's break down some other interesting updates as things continue to heat up surrounding the Lakers. Before we get into it all, if you're part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Lakers content. Your guys' support has been unbelievable. So if you're a part of that percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a lot to go over today. And obviously, there is more and more news coming out every single day surrounding the Lakers and, of course, surrounding the NBA in general. But a brand new report has dropped revealing some big information surrounding a bunch of Lakers targets. Now, you can see one there, which is Dante Exum, which we'll dive into later in the video. But you can see this here. Chris McGee mentioned that he has heard of the Lakers having interest in Luke Kornet and they've expressed interest in Trey Jones as a backup point guard. I like Trey Jones. He'd be a nice backup point guard. Always kind of been intrigued by his game as a reserve. And we're going to dive into Trey Jones because there's been a lot of reports now that have come out surrounding the Lakers and, needing a point guard. And of course, their number one goal has been to acquire a center this, offseason. That is going to be the number one goal, rather. But Trey Jones is an extremely intriguing, that'd be the word I would use as well, an intriguing option, because is he going to fix this Lakers team? Absolutely not. But we know that this Lakers team has a ton of holes they need to fill, right? They have a ton. They have a backup point guard spot they need to fill. They have to fill there's just a lot of areas where this team is, deficient right now, and they need to fix them. They can't do one move to fix everything. However, getting Trey Jones is an extremely, extremely interesting idea. And you can see this here. The Lakers have been linked with some big names this offseason, but they'll likely be making some smaller moves as well. Lakers insider Kobe Price shared some lower tier players. There's some other guys in here we're going to dive into, including Dante Exum, but I want to start with, of course, Trey Jones. Now, looking at Trey Jones' stats here, we also have an interesting Dorian Finney-Smith update to go over later in this video. But last year with the Bulls, he averaged 11.5 points per game. And you're probably familiar with Trey Jones from his time with the San Antonio Spurs. He was drafted by San Antonio, and he actually was pretty critical to their team for a few years there before, Wembanyama really started to thrive. And of course, last year, he was pretty bad in his time in San Antonio, averaging 4.4 points a game. And of course, they got rid of him in the deal for the Spurs, that is, got rid of him in the deal for De'Aaron Fox, and he went to Chicago, that big three-way trade. Trey Jones is a very good facilitator, and you can see this here last year. He kind of started to thrive again with the Bulls, and I think he's a guy that, when given adequate playing time, is a very capable player. Now, excuse me, let's look back to some of his stats in Spurs. So, of course, 12.9 points a game, 6.6 assists back in 2022, 2023. Now, you look at, of course, some of his great years there, very solid facilitating. And he was just very, his teammates were, Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson. Last year with the Bulls, he only started half of the games. He put up 11.5 points, 5 assists a game. Now, if you look at him from the perspective of how he did, since, of course, getting traded to the Bulls, a lot better and more aligned with his career averages. Was having a bit of a weird stint there with the Spurs, especially before he got traded. He would be a perfect backup point guard for this team. And the main reason for that is they need somebody who can be a floor general off the bench. Because last year we saw a bunch of different, and of course, their starting lineup's going to have Luka Doncic. It's going to have Austin Reaves, LeBron James, and then whoever else to figure out the center, probably Rui Hachimura if he remains. But their backup point guard was Gabe Vincent. Now, Gabe Vincent is very good, and he was kind of supposed to be, a gritty defender who can score the ball, backup point guard / shooting guard. Trey Jones would have a clear-cut role, and not only would he help kind of relieve some of the duties from Austin Reaves, but he would also just be able to have a clear-cut role, which you come in, you score some points, but also, most importantly, be a gritty and solid defender, but a good facilitator. Help run that bench unit that desperately needs a floor general back there. And he's not a super, young player. He's not old by any means. He's still, fairly young, all things he's 25, but he's not new to the NBA. He's been around now for a few years under Greg Popovich a lot, has developed as a backup point guard and is used to the backup point guard role in 2023, 2024, Victor Wembanyama's year. He averaged, of course, 10 points a game, but he only started 48 of those games, which is, perfect if you're looking at what the Lakers need, because they need a backup point guard. And there's some other, of course, additions that they need as well. But a backup point guard is something that, they'll probably get rid of Gabe Vincent in any trade that they use to acquire a center. They need to get rid of some of the salary. He matches up well. He, of course, the Lakers signed him to the MLE. Didn't really work out. If you want to sign Trey Jones and get Trey Jones, makes a lot of sense. And it's a bit of an under-the-radar move as well, because there are some teams that are involved in Trey Jones, and it makes some sense there. But I think by far having a backup point guard like Trey Jones would elevate this team, thoroughly. And let me know down below what your thoughts are on that. I just think these are the moves that winning teams make, and the Lakers aren't going to be able to always make huge splashes. They're probably going to make a big splash in the center department. They still need a 3-and-D wing, but Trey Jones as a backup point guard would be perfect. Also, a name that's a bit less, I guess, exciting depending on who you ask, is Dante Exum. Now, he averaged 8, 1, and 3 last year for the Mavericks. He at one point had, again, he was a first-round pick, a former first-round pick, played for the Jazz for a while. He is a solid backup as well, but the biggest issue with him is different than Trey Jones. Trey Jones is a pretty, reliable guy. He's going to play most, games. A little bit of injury concerns, but not a ton. Dante Exum, on the other hand, has some major injury concerns. Now, the last time he played more than 50 games was in 2016, 2017, and I don't know if the Lakers want to go out and get somebody who has, severe injury concerns. I just don't think that's something that they want to necessarily do, especially given the fact that they are trying to win, now, and how many years LeBron has left. You'd probably rather somebody who's a bit more, reliable. That being said, he's a very solid, backup point guard as well. I mean, 8 points a game last year for the Mavericks. Year before, of course, he didn't play. He played overseas now for a couple years there prior to the season before last. He's more of a veteran guy. I prefer the Trey Jones, option just because Trey Jones is a much better facilitator. He would provide a much more, clear-cut role for this team and something that JJ Redick can work with, whereas Dante Exum kind of, he not a great facilitator, a decent scorer. And you look at the depth chart and what this team kind of needs right now, you look at it, and let's just assume Gabe Vincent returns. Then, of course, is a different conversation. But even then, I think they can make an upgrade. I would honestly prefer Trey Jones over, Gabe Vincent, regardless of what happens, right? Whether or not Gabe Vincent returns to this team or is a part of a package deal, I would much rather a Gabe Vincent type player compared to I'd rather Trey Jones type player compared to Gabe Vincent, just because I have faith in Trey Jones. He's younger, and I think he can also develop to be a very solid, complementary piece for Luka Doncic, going forward as the backup point guard. Maybe I'm a bit higher than most on Trey Jones, but he had some very good years in San Antonio with a bad team. You put him alongside Luka Doncic, you put him alongside LeBron James. I think he could do very good things. And I also think, Exum's more of a, I guess a win now move to a degree, but I still don't, prefer that move. Let me know between the two which you prefer, because it is extremely interesting at the end of the day. The Lakers roster construction is weird, and things are going to continue to be weird. But let me know down below what your thoughts are. Also, speaking of roster construction, you can see there Dorian Finney-Smith with the O. So he was officially, he underwent surgery on his left ankle and is expected to participate in training camp. So a bit similar to different injuries, but it's similar to Jaylen Brown in the sense of they both underwent surgeries kind of out of nowhere and are going to be available for training camp. You can see this here from Tony Vega. Curious if the ankle injury hampered DFS all season. Could it be we haven't seen the best of what he can offer? And that's a very possible, option, because since getting traded from the Brooklyn Nets, he wasn't, necessarily as good as he was with Brooklyn. And we always knew that was going to happen. Players like this, think about Cam Johnson. Once he went to Brooklyn, he started shining. In the Suns, he was pretty good, but he scored a lot more now in Brooklyn, especially last year. I think DFS, if the injury was harping him, I think he's going to be crucial to this team, right? And Dorian Finney-Smith has the ability defensively to be one of the best defenders in the league, and he still was very good defensively for the Lakers last year. But his three-point percentage, dropped a little bit. He was slow out there at times, not necessarily defensively, but hustle-wise, his rebounding, dropped by a full rebound a game, which doesn't seem like a lot, but for someone who doesn't rebound a ton anyways, it was probably due in part to the injury, which was on his ankle. So ankle affects every part of the game, especially for a defender. This gives me a bit of hope now for Dorian Finney-Smith next season, and that maybe we didn't see, we know we didn't see this Lakers team at 100%, but maybe we're going to see some bigger and better things for Dorian Finney-Smith going forward. But let me know down below your thoughts are on all that. You guys are the best. Thank you guys for watching. See you later.